Hello, and welcome to the second in Adapta's short series of reflections and predictions for the coming decade. Today we're going to hear from Dan Lockeretz, and he's going to be talking about influences and opportunities from outside the not-for-profit sector. I hope you enjoy.
Hello there. I'd like to spend some time talking about the fact that we are not alone. No, I'm not talking about little green Martians. I am, of course, talking about our non-profit sector and not being alone when it comes to technology. I want to consider how much technology trends beyond the non-profit sector have had an influence on our sector and take a look at what else we should be watching out for. But why is this something I should care about, I hear you ask? Well, to answer that, I'd point to a few reasons and use the classic technology, people and process headings. When it comes to choosing and changing technology, if we can learn what's happening with technology both within and beyond our sector, it's potentially going to help you make better informed decisions. And when it comes to the people side of technology, whether it's in recruitment or retention, it's important to understand where you can access or develop the skills you need for your organisation, and understanding the technical resources environment beyond the non-profit sector is critical to that. And then in terms of processes and using technology effectively, an understanding of how tech is being used beyond our sector will give us ideas and techniques for the application of it, leading to better implementations, adoptions and bigger improvements. So hopefully I've got you convinced it's a subject worth listening to. So let's now consider how much technology trends beyond the non-profit sector have been influential inside our sector. And to do so, I've picked out what I consider to be three of the biggest tech themes over the last 5 to 10 years or so, and then looked at what's happened inside of our sector in each of those. So first up, I've gone for the so-called big data and data-led strategies. And there was a time when non-profit within the sector, we would have thought of this kind of stuff. It should really be left to Tesco's and Amazons of this world. But now the proliferation of data collection has forced us into a position of needing to make sense of it all. And simultaneously, that has presented a great opportunity for us to use that data to deliver more targeted messages and a bespoke supporter experience. On the delivery side, it's offered a world of opportunity to deliver better managed and delivered services, and crucially, it's improved our ability to demonstrate our impact. So no, I'm not arguing that many non-profits have nailed this area, and we surely lag behind many sectors on this front. But look inside most medium to large non-profits today, and you find the presence of things that suggest this trend really is going to stick. So for example, there's teams of data analysts and insight people, some from even outside of the sector, believe it or not. Analytical tools such as Tableau, Power BI and Click and so forth. We have public-facing impact dashboards and data-led supporter journeys and strategies based on data-led evidence. For my next theme, I'm going to talk about cloud computing. And this is a trend that's been gathering pace for many years now. And it is perhaps in the old fundraising database or the CRM system where we've seen the most significant switch to cloud software. It's taken some time, but the adoption of Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics and the like by even relatively small non-profits is a trend that looks set to stay. So world-leading CRMs that were once reserved for the sales teams of blue chip corps of the world have now become firmly on the shortlist when non-profits are considering a new CRM. And the real game changer in this space has been the development of non-profit specific apps on the platforms, so the non-profit cloud and Salesforce, or the non-profit accelerator and the common data model on Dynamics, for example. You could argue these have given non-profits the best of both worlds because it means you can leverage all the benefit of the cloud CRM platform and you have an out-of-the-box solution that gets you up and running pretty quickly. It's meant that the CRM no longer just sits in isolation in the fundraising department and instead can serve the whole organisation, data silos and disintegration becoming a thing of the past. Add to this improved pricing and discounts for non-profits and a growing ecosystem of developers, app marketplaces, and users comfortable with working on such systems. And you begin to understand why this trend, perhaps more than any other, is a perfect demonstration of a tech trend that started outside of our sector and now has a real firm foothold in it. My third theme is that of personalised digital supporter experience. Similar to the big data trend, the concept of personalised digital customer experience was something for Amazon again to worry about. But we all know now as consumers and customers and service users that we now expect pretty much seamless and immediate customer experience, no matter on what platform we have that experience. And that expectation has crossed over to the non-profit world. And the world we now operate in means that catching and keeping our supporters' attention has become tougher and more competitive than ever. The development and improvement of the digital supporter experience has therefore been a trend that most non-profits have had to grapple with in order to stay relevant to their existing supporter base and to attract new supporters. Add into this mix the data analytics we've already discussed and the modern data cloud technology that allows the design and delivery of such experiences, and you begin to see the huge influence technology trends outside of the sector have had on our entire non-profit businesses. We can no doubt point to tech trends that haven't hugely influenced our sector yet, or perhaps trends that we've been slow to adopt, for example, things like augmented reality and the Internet of Things. But I think overwhelmingly the picture is that our sector has increasingly over time become more closely aligned to tech trends beyond our sector. If we look back to 15 years or so ago, you'd be hard pressed to find any technology tools used by the fundraising department of a charity outside of that sector. Look now and you'll often find world-leading CRMs, mainstream business intelligence tools, and a whole raft of best-of-breed digital tools ubiquitous across the business world. We could in fact argue that one of the main global trends is that technology itself is now developed with flexibility and adaptability in mind and with a multi-sector target market. So if we accept, therefore, that the premise that our sector is now intrinsically connected to tech trends beyond our sector, what could be the next thing that may influence our sector and what should we look out for? Let me first start by spending a moment on the trends we've just been looking at, because there's a few developments in those areas first and foremost that I think are significant. In terms of big data, the Internet of Things and wearables are likely to become more significant in our sector, particularly in terms of understanding and improving our service delivery and measuring and demonstrating our impact. On cloud software and digital integration, we're likely to see the further growth in virtual events and mobile fundraising. So modern payment technologies like Google Wallet and Apple Pay and cloud infrastructure for storing on-demand content will become critical for supporting this growth. And regarding the digital customer experiences, these are likely to become more demanding, widespread, and we need to move to the social media platforms and apps where our supporters live. I think that's all fairly predictable. There is, however, potential that the pandemic has reminded us all of the real value of human contact. So perhaps the significant trend will be for the improved merging of digital and in-person user experiences, as opposed to creating two unrelated supporter journeys and experiences. So those are perhaps some of the more obvious trends that we may continue to see heavily influence our sector. But where are the areas that really haven't taken hold in our sector yet? And I've limited myself to three of these also, and I've tried to stick to those that are reasonably applicable and attainable. And I've landed on three that are: one being artificial intelligence and machine learning, two being process automation, and three, perhaps the surprise one, diversity, equity and inclusion technology. So let's just have a quick look at each as to why I think now's the right time for them to influence non-profits. Starting with artificial intelligence, or AI, which has been receiving quite a buzz for a long time now, but it's a trend we haven't seen take hold of in our sector in a big way, just yet at least. But it's here, it's in our everyday lives now. We all know it, whether it's in our smartphones, personal assistants, our navigation apps, or through our online shopping or streaming services. But why will we see this move to non-profits now? Well, for one, because the technology is readily available. with Salesforce's Einstein AI or Microsoft's Azure AI services such as Azure Machine Learning and Azure Databricks. The tech is built into our CRMs, or at least it's relatively cheap and easy to get started. And come with that, there's also a growing community of experts that know how to use the stuff, and they're becoming more affordable. Secondly, the amount of data and online interactions we are now having on a daily basis means that we need to leverage these tools to make sense of it all and help us deliver a coherent supporter experience. And lastly, the environment we're operating in is going to be more competitive than ever before. So we need to ensure efficiencies and prove our worth. And AI will be critical in serving both purposes. So how might we see AI being used? Well, here's a few examples. So AI-based chatbots helping to automate supporter services, for example. AI-based fraud detection systems detecting unusual transactions and spotting abnormalities. AI can help perform sophisticated data and analytics, for example, to spot trends in a supporter's activity and identify the next engagement steps on a supporter journey, enhancing that personalised experience. Or perhaps on the service delivery side, AI will be used to help predict demand for services in healthcare, for example, enabling better decision-making in resource allocation or the supply chain. And that leads us on to process automation. So automation, in the same way as AI, has been around a while, but I think our sector hasn't really started to take advantage of it yet in a big way. And like AI, many of the same things are in place to make now the right time for automation to really take off, namely the availability of the technology. And again, if we could look to Salesforce and Microsoft with their process builders, workflow builders, and Power Automate, meaning we have the necessary tools at our fingers. And those same drivers are in place for us to need to get to grips with these tools now, specifically the drive to efficiency. Some real tangible examples of automation include things like automating the supporter journey, sending the right messages at the right time based on certain interactions. The automation of supporter inquiries through a case management process, for example. Or how about the automating of various administrative tasks, for example, to manage the setup of a meeting through a data point collection point, triggering the scheduling of a meeting, the sending of a briefing pack, to the sending of a follow-up evaluation form. All of that could be automated. And lastly, I want to talk about technology in the diversity, equity, inclusion world. And this is the final trend I want to spend a moment talking about, and it's something that I think could potentially be pretty significant for our sector. We've seen a big turnaround in recent years in the understanding of the value in having a diverse workforce. And with recent social justice protests, we've seen growing attention on diversity, equity and inclusion strategies by leaders across many sectors. However, not many organisations have leveraged technology to support this strategy, but the tech world is quick to spot gaps in the market and have responded accordingly. We're now seeing tech solutions to help identify areas that lack diversity or equity by re-engineering the way data is collected, managed, analysed and reported. These tools can help nudge behaviours towards equity at key moments. For example, a manager who is preparing to conduct annual performance reviews may receive a notification to enrol in micro-training on unconscious bias. Or in recruitment, for example, the tech can help identify and recruit a more diverse candidate pool by identifying and addressing bias-based language in job postings using natural language processing. In leadership, the tools can encourage more objective performance reviews using behavioural assessment tools and learning platforms. So again, that question, why do I think this might be a trend to watch for non-profits now? Well, in short, my experience is that people in the non-profit sector care more than most about diversity and equity, and our sector certainly has a lot to improve in this area. So as our CEOs and HR leaders begin to really attempt to move the dial in this area, they're going to need every bit of help they can get. And if we see this tech proving its worth outside of the sector, I think the non-profit sector could well be swift to follow. So we've looked at the case for how our sector has become more closely aligned to global technology trends. We've looked at how some of those trends will continue to influence our sector, and we've looked ahead to see what we should watch out for. What then's the key takeaway from all of this? Well, I come right back to the beginning as to why I think this is an important subject. If you're looking for a new technology solution, the simple message is it's worth looking beyond our sector. If you're looking at recruitment, retention and development of your people, pay attention to how important non-profit specific experience really is. Might you be better off looking for skills that currently lie largely outside of the sector? If you're looking to improve your business processes, your efficiency, your security, your workforce's diversity, and pretty much anything within your business, it's worth learning how technology is being used to help with that, and you can look beyond our sector for that. And finally, as you look ahead and do your planning or develop a strategy, whether this is a high-level 3-year organisation strategy or a 3-month individual task list, my tip is to keep these technical trends in mind and build in some time to observe what's going on beyond our sector and look at where your organisation can benefit from those trends and bake them into your plans. That's all from me. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this some useful food for thought.
Well, I hope you found that interesting. Please join us next time for another talk about IT and where we might be going over the next 10 years. Meanwhile, goodbye.
Thinking about the phrase customer experience usually sends shivers down the spines of charity staff and fundraisers everywhere. Firstly, we don't really have a clue what it means, let alone have any idea of how to actually create a customer experience. There really hasn't been a need for charity apps. They don't seem to serve any useful purpose for the charity supporter or the charity customer. But back to what I said at the very beginning, we shouldn't create these digital and technological customer experience products in our eyes, with our preconceptions, but with the customer's experience in mind.